Welcome to Phone Booth Fighting. He is Frank Mir. I am Richard Hunter. Frank, we are back in the bunker deep inside the bowels of stately Mir Manor in suburban Las Vegas. It feels like it's been a while since we've been here. Actually, I've been busy while you've been away traveling abroad internationally. I've been busy here in the bunker, appointing it, getting up soundproofing tiles and a big television monitor so we can Skype in guests, and lighting, and our new Phone Booth Fighting logo that's over our shoulder here, not to mention our IKEA furniture. So what do you think? Was it a happy surprise to come home to?
It's nice. I'm impressed.
Good.
Especially since I know your handyman skills are not too much better than mine.
Oh, man. We yesterday we were here in the bunker, and we were trying to mount a television onto the wall. We ultimately succeeded in mounting the television on the wall, but two guys and
none
a
of us
drill.
lost a finger, man.
Right. No, it was awful. It was like 2 men and a drill, and there was only a 1-bolt casualty, I think.
Yeah.
We ended up getting the thing on the wall, so in the coming weeks, you'll see guests Skyping into the bunker here. PhoneBoothFighting.com. Speaking of new things, the all-new website that has been launched. Check it out, PhoneBoothFighting.com. That is a great way to support the show by going to the website, clicking through the Amazon banner, which is a great way to support the show. You can do your shopping on Amazon. Doesn't cost you a penny more, but the show does benefit if you click through the Amazon banner on PhoneBoothFighting.com. Also, show merchandise is available there, so if you want your Phone Booth Fighting t-shirts, multiple styles, multiple colors, autographed items as well, you can get all that at PhoneBoothFighting.com. And please, by all means, check out our sponsor link to see who supports the show as well. More on that later. Well, Frank, catch everybody up, tell them where you've been. There was, I know, at least one country that ended in the word "stan," which
Right.
makes me nervous.
Have we
I'm
not
glad you're
talked
back.
since then?
Okay. Well, we kind of have. I mean, if you recall,
When's the last time we were in here doing this?
It's when a week ago, but you traveled. You and I talked on the phone, but we didn't do anything on the podcast. Because
Man, I'm starting to mix dates
know.
up and times together.
Well, it was a 12-hour time difference, which
Well,
is
I
the
think
worst for us.
I might be repeating myself. So I know we went on vacation with the family, a vacation we planned out a year ago.
Right, a Disney cruise.
Disney cruise. There was 28 of us. We went on that. The only part about it that kind of sucked was that I had to pack my stuff to go to Dushanbe, Tajikistan from Miami. So the family and we all got off the boat. I checked them into their flight, and then I got a ride over to the other terminal to go international. So I said goodbye to the family. They flew back home. So I went from vacation to immediately back to work, and flew to Dushanbe, Tajikistan. And it turned out to be about almost like 40 hours of travel time.
Wow. This is to call fights for ACB.
Right. So I did the ACB, and then I got to stay the night in Almaty, Kazakhstan, which was a very beautiful place. And it was actually kind of one of those things where the layover actually turned out to be a good thing. Because at first the ACB is like, well, I think there's a hotel at the airport. So when you land there, just figure out where the airport, you're kind of on your own a lot when you travel internationally.
Yeah.
You got to be self-sufficient. So when I got there, we landed like at 1 a.m, and my next flight now, I have basically a 10-hour layover. And the airport wasn't. The hotel was not adjacent to the airport.
Oh.
I'm talking to different people in broken English and whatnot. That anywhere from 2 miles away to it's in the middle of the city, and good luck that the cab drivers are going to take advantage of you because they see that you're a foreigner. Should only you
didn't blend in with the local culture.
I need to grow a beard.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Start with a beard, and then you get like a fez hat or something. Do they
that
all
might
have
help
those?
too,
Yeah.
but definitely the beard. I think that's the part that gives me away.
Yeah.
And so, but luckily, and actually, I got the guy a shout out.
Oh boy.
There was a fighter that I knew from Jackson's who trains there. He's actually, even though Almaty is not his city, he lives in Kazakhstan, and he was back after a 3-month camp visiting with his family.
Oh, okay. This is a guy you were posting some pictures on Instagram or
Yeah.
something, right? Yeah, I saw those. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what happened to my WhatsApp all of a sudden.
Get ready for creative name pronunciation in 3, 2.
Don't do that to me, man. Arman.
Okay.
Aspanov. There we go. I didn't maul it too badly.
No, it's not too bad.
So those guys from their camp there, Alish Pride, saw me there at the airport, and they had to stay at a hotel because he also had to catch a connecting flight the next morning. So, they asked me, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm in the midst of figuring it out right now. I'm like, no, we'll take care of you. So I jumped in the car, and then I was kind of messing with the ACB guys because Paul from England, he's like, hey, where are you at? I'm like, I don't know, man. They're just taking me out to the woods, He's all, no, seriously. Take a picture of whoever you're with. Make sure you're not getting kidnapped right now. I'm like, nah, I think I'm okay, man. Honestly, I got a decent feeling about it, which probably is what most kidnapped feeling
sure.
probably say right before
These
it goes.
Guys seem like my friends.
It seems like nice guys, you know what I mean? And so they took me to the hotel. They took care of the room, bought me food, and that's where I ate the horse meat. And then the next morning, they saw me back to the airport, and I was off. So my flight's supposed to be like at 11 o'clock, right? And it sure enough is not at 11 o'clock because now I'm on one of their more local, I guess it's not local, still international travel to them because they're going from Kazakhstan to Tajikistan. But I'm not going to be a dick and call out the airline, but it wasn't an airline that probably any of our listeners have ever been on before.
Okay.
So sure enough, we're there for 2, 4, 6 hours of a layover. I got to meet some of the guys that U.S. guys that are actually working over at the embassy, doing different types of of work, everything from just translators to protective areas, and so we finally get there. And then, we're having conversations that I probably won't be calling the fights because I was supposed to get there at like 11 o'clock.
Okay. I saw something posted online
Yes.
where people were saying, did I just hear Frank say correctly that he arrived 10 minutes? And I don't mean to jump ahead in your story.
No, that's actually
got to
what
make sure
happened.
there's the same thing we're talking about.
I finally get in. It's a 2-hour flight. And the only thing that kind of helped out a little bit was an hour. They were an hour ahead in time, so I gained an hour. So when I land there, I have to get through customs now, passport control, go through customs. And luckily they had one of the guys standing there, they pulled me to the front of the line, tried to get me through as fast as possible, but obviously I still got to go through the process. So we get through and they're like, I jump in the car and we start flying towards the arena. And Dushanbe's not a big area, but it's not, definitely not 4-lane streets where we're going. So we get there, and it's about 15 minutes before it starts. So I jump out of the car, and I run inside real quick, and I'm like, okay, is there a restroom? I need to use the restroom, And it's like, yeah, no problem. So they walk me into the public area, and I walk in. Now this is where the story gets kind of funny because I have to, I've been at the airport. I don't have to just urinate, I have to, number 2. And so I walk into the stall, and I don't know if you know this in East Asia, a lot of the public restrooms is just a hole in the ground.
Yeah, I've been to China.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it's not a hole like in the dirt. I mean, it's porcelain, it's the toilet, but the toilet is on
level with the ground.
It's level with the ground, dude.
Yeah. Which is great if you're a short, small person.
Right. So now I'm looking at it. I'm trying to figure it out. And I don't have – first thing I do nowadays is I Google shit. Like, well, how the hell do you use this? Do I have a YouTube video?
You literally Google shit.
I was trying to. But I don't have can't get any connections. So
no.
So now I'm trying not to look like a creeper, but I'm trying to look at – you do what everybody does when you go into a foreign area. Yeah. You look at the locals.
Do as the locals do.
What are the local guys doing,
So was some poor guy like on his hole in the adjacent stall and he just sees your big dome like
I didn't go over the top at least. I went to the side. I'm trying to look at the crack. And so I'm looking. I'm like, okay.
That's not worse.
I'm like, am I supposed to take my pants off completely? And I'm looking at the floor. And it's a public restroom, like most public restrooms, and no matter what country you go to, I'm not stepping on the floor barefoot. And
Smart.
And so I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, so do you take your pants off? And so I had to like work out the trajectory. I'm like sitting here. I'm trying to figure out how this works. And so luckily I figured it out after, peeping on a few other guys and like watching what they were doing. Yeah. Then I come out and then, I wash my hands real quick, slick my hair back with water, and throw on a button up shirt and then walk out to the arena, sit down, and we have 10 minutes before the show starts.
Oh, man.
And I wanted to complain, not complain, but I'm sitting there calling up the guys like, hey, I'm running behind. They're like, hey, and they're not answering my phone call.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, I got issues here. I'm not getting there. They're like, we got a lion at the arena. I'm like, what? They're like, well, there was a circus 2 days before, and they still have some of the animals there. And there's a lion in one of the rooms we want to use as a workout room. It's in a cage, but no one wants to work out in a room with a lion in a cage. I'm like, shit. Yeah, your problems are worse than mine. Every time you want to go complain and someone one-ups you. So then we got done with that, and then I was supposed to come back immediately. They were going to, after the show, drive me back to the airport.
Oh.
And when I get there, the airplane is postponed till now. Leaving, it was supposed to leave at 2 in the morning. Now it leaves at 6 in the morning. So they take me back. I go to the hotel. I lay down for an hour and actually fall asleep. Wake up, go back, and then that's when I stay at the airport till about 11 o'clock that morning. Find out that that plane is no longer well, they have us even board the plane finally, and I'm trying to look at it and going, okay, I have to fly to Frankfurt, Germany. I'm going to have about an hour and a half to catch my connecting flight. So now we pull off the runway, and we're sitting on the tarmac for about an hour. I'm like, okay, I got 30 minutes. Like, is it possible? I'm like, I've crunched some numbers before, and I've made some headway, and just try to get through. So then they turn us around, they pull out the buses, and they tell us that the plane's broken. We're not getting on it. So
better to find out now.
Yeah, I wasn't too disappointed about the fact we got off a broken plane.
Right.
So then we go back to the terminal. We sit there for a couple hours, and then I start to call the wife, because now I realize I'm not going to make my connecting flight, and I'm trying to call the seminar in Millersville, Maryland,
right?
I'm supposed to come back and do.
Yeah, because it's not going to be enough that you just go to Tajikistan and then call some fights and then come home. No, not Frank Mir. You go ahead and plan a seminar on the way back in Millersville, Maryland.
That's a long time flying back. I figured, I might as well stop on the East Coast, and then
sure.
And then
maybe just do a seminar on the flight on the way home if anybody wants to sign up.
Yeah,
just
if
get
I
out
didn't
there
think
in
it would
the
cause
aisle.
a problem, Can you imagine the air marshals? What is he doing?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make that phone call. So why I'm trying to deal with that, because my phone's not allowing me to call John from Garfield Martial Arts. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to work that out. So then I had called the wife, and Jennifer. I'm like, okay, you have to, because my phone's letting me call you. We have to add call. So we got that figured out and explained that, I'm screwed. There's nothing I can do. So by the time I get done, I look up, everybody in the terminal's gone. What had happened was, I'll jump to the head of it. Because they realized the plane was not going to leave that day until the next morning at 6 in the morning, they took everybody through customs, took them out, re-stamped their passports that, basically like saying, like kind of a re-entry, like a do-over.
Okay.
And they took them to a hotel. Well, while this process is occurring, I'm on the phone trying to figure out and explain to people that I'm about to miss a seminar.
You missed out on the process.
I missed out on the process. So I look up and no one's there. And so the girl who worked the airlines is gone. So I try to go to another airlines. They don't speak English. And the only problem was I was starting to run into, and I'm sure that happens everywhere, but I was kind of getting I don't really want to deal with you. He'll help you. And just point at random people.
You're getting passed off.
Yeah, I got passed off quite a bit. And then I kind of, for me, lost my cool a little bit. And luckily, at first I didn't think very luckily, that brought security over to me. A large foreigner getting kind of loud, because I was upset that, I was okay, I'm just going to leave, I can't leave. I'm like, well, everybody else left. No, they didn't. I'm like, you're going to tell me no one's left? I'm the only one in here.
Yeah.
And so finally, two guys run up, figure out that I got left behind, that I'm part of a group that they don't have any intercommunication with whatsoever. And so I finally get out, and then, spend the night there and come home. And being there wasn't so bad, like I said,
what is the Tajikistan Hilton like? Is that
actually, I stayed at the Hyatt.
Okay.
Super nice. Mrs. Mir might have freaked out, because as we pulled up to the Hyatt, they have a guy that stops you, because they have these two metals reinforcements, car barriers, basically. Barricade is the word I'm looking for. They come up out of the ground. So if you try to run through, you'll smash your vehicle. So you have to stop. You roll your window down. The guy comes and checks you out. Then he has a a mirror on basically a long.
Oh yeah, they go underneath the car.
Yeah, he has to check the car out. You open the trunk, show him you don't have any explosives in the vehicle.
Yeah,
and then the barricade's lower and you can go through. And I'm sure that it's pretty much preventative. It's kind of like the TSA at the airport. They're kind of there to make you feel better. They don't really stop anybody of any consequence. They just annoy the shit out of the rest of us.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I'm like, this would be a nice place to bring Mrs. Mary, try this out. And I'm like, yeah, she'd have freaked out at the mirror under the car thing, because she would have asked why they were looking and what they were looking for. And if someone goes looking for a bum, might have been a problem.
They don't do this at Disneyland.
No.
Yeah.
And so then, but I got to be home for 2 days before I took off to Moscow. And then went out there for Fight Night Global.
Some might say, if you're already in Tajikistan and you got to be in Moscow 2 days later, you might just stay there.
Yeah, I thought about it, but I wanted to come back to the kids. Cage had a football game I was trying to catch.
I envy being raised in this let me just tell you, you should. I know the kids are in bed. You should march every one of them in here right now, sit them on our guest couch, and let me tell them about how things could be. Yeah. All right? Because my guess is, because they don't know any different, they're not adequately appreciating it. But how about you for being an awesome dad?
Trying, man. Doing
Congratulations
my best.
on that.
And then the Fight Night Global was kind of funny in itself,
Yeah.
Did you get to hear my broadcast?
No, this one I have missed quite a bit of. I'm sorry because of the time difference.
You need to listen.
Okay. All right.
It was a little bit on the interesting side.
Or anything in particular we should, we'd drive listeners there right now. If they go on ACB's YouTube page, it's right there. So,
well,
anything in particular you want people to look out for?
The Fight Night Global guys are looking to step up their game. And so they hired this group here, a U.S.-based organization. Mm-hmm. And the U.S. guys are the ones that basically have hired me to bring me out there as part of the show. And on their part, everything's exactly how they say it's going to be.
Okay.
Booked my tickets 2 weeks out, business class. You need the window, we get you the window. Whatever little,
need a plane that works, we're going to get a working plane.
It was decent.
Yeah.
Once I got there, that breakdown of just efficiency is fucking smashed, man. Oh. It was horrible. Just because we couldn't figure out, who to ask for what was in charge. For an example, when I got there, for the first half hour before the show started, we didn't know if I was even calling fights or not.
Why would you not call the fights?
That's exactly what I was trying to figure out.
Okay.
So we're getting there, and then one guy that basically runs one, it was basically a bunch of bubbles, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And the head guy controls everything, but because he controls everything, I think a lot of stuff gets prioritized because he only has so much time. So imagine if Dana, if we're talking the UFC, was responsible for everything. So everybody from the camera guy to the ticket seller to the usher, if they wanted to okay something, the only person that was allowed to okay everything was one guy.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Be very difficult to get things done. And so I think that's why they brought this American crew on, to try to streamline things, to show them a more efficient way that you can actually have a level of management where, this guy, this is his bubble, and everybody in that bubble is going to report to him for the time being. And I'm going to trust this guy to make decisions on his own. Basically, I'm going to have my own Donna, to take care of stuff. So
you have to explain who Donna is.
Donna is basically the one that runs the UFC. Yeah. Donna, what's her last name?
What is her last name? Anyway, there's a lady named Donna.
She runs the UFC as far as the rubber meets the pavement, right? So anyways, so at one point they don't know how many fights, if it's this, that, because the TV crew doesn't know who I am, and then the production area over here. It was just, it was very chaotic going back and forth. And then on top of that, I had to, the two guys I worked with had never done broadcasting before.
Now, was Brian Lacey not on this one?
No, Brian Lacey is solely right now with ACB.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We're talking about Fight Night Global.
Fight Night Global.
Different
Russians.
Also Russians, different Russians, though. Right. Same MMA, different Russians. Got it. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, so these two guys had never
done it before. And nice guys. Yeah. But here I'm jumping into a new show, and the person I'm with has no idea what they're doing either. Their first show.
Yeah. What now? Let me ask, were they fighters? Were they...
No.
Okay. Were they like professional broadcasters?
No.
Like, okay. Was
No.
it the one guy that runs everything? Was he one of the guys doing the commentary too?
One guy seemed to know, well, both guys seem to know about martial arts.
Okay.
But
Now these are Americans?
one's an American that lives in Moscow, and that's
Okay.
why I think he got the opportunity.
Okay. Yeah.
And and for the situation, they both did as good as you could possibly, as well as I think anybody could do in the same situation, being brand new at it, and no rehearsal, which I thought was odd. That like, okay, you're gonna have a new guy, let's have a rehearsal and let's walk through this. There was no call sheet. As far as, okay, at this time we're going to go off, at this time so it was just it was a lot of improv, and so and then obviously too, they're both new guys, so they said things that a couple times I'm like looking at them, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And so it made for an interesting night.
Wow. So now you're going to be doing more Fight Night Global. That's going to be coming up this year.
Yeah, well, they have more Fight Night Globals, and hopefully still ACB. I'm still working out, how to go between the two and back and forth, and if that works out. I think right now there was a little bit of an issue where kind of, I don't know if it's a Russian thing, but where, well, if you're going to work for one, you can't work for the other. We're both, whereas I was kind of laughing because the judges work for both. I seen judges that work at ACB that were working there. The MC, Alexander Zagorsky.
Alexander Buffer.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was there. He's at ACB. So I was kind of like, I understand you don't want fighters going back and forth, but production crew, which as a color commentator I fall under in this situation, I don't think it matters.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, has anybody thought to call Jeff Monson? Because he's got to be around somewhere close over there.
Yeah.
If he's not on the card. Because I think half of all Russian cards he has to fight on. I think that's a Russian law. But then the other half, he's
our token American.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Yeah. So, I mean, all in all, it was pretty fun. But I just wasn't used to some of the stuff going on. So, like I said, when you sit there watching, you'll see me kind of, because we had no truck in the ear as far as no one talking to us in our headpiece. I had one of the guys from the production crew on the American side, basically with nothing in his ear either, but just trying to like do it the old-fashioned way, like sitting there looking over and go, okay, I think the guys are walking, go.
Yeah.
And so at one point, me and the guy started announcing, and I look over, I'm waiting to announce the second guy, and he's already in the cage. It took me about 2 or 3 fights to realize that for the early fights, I don't know, to save time, but both fighters walked at the same time. So they both walk out. Yeah, no, I'm not shitting you, man.
Yeah.
And they walk shoulder to shoulder to the cage.
Wow.
And then one stops, gets checked by the ref, and then he enters and the other one. So they enter pretty much back to back. So then I started catching on to that. I'm like, all right, cool. They're both walking at the same time, no problem. But then they shift gears on me, didn't tell me. And all of a sudden it was one guy and then the other. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Wow. You are getting such, you had all the experience pretty early on in your career with WEC. But of course, that was being part of a bigger show, bigger production. Always kind of under that Zuffa umbrella, UFC, and that kind of thing. Now it's interesting because between this stuff and podcasting, you were getting like a real guerrilla education over this course of a year in different kinds of broadcasting. This is really interesting to watch.
I definitely get to work it at all different levels. I think if I had just stayed only doing stuff for UFC and WEC, I don't think I'd have the understanding of other aspects of it that I'm having now.
It's going to be interesting to me if I were scripting it for a movie, then you would be involved in some promotion where there were technical problems and you actually use the little bit of knowledge that you've learned here on the podcast about
no, I didn't tell you the best
stringing
part.
chords to make it work.
So I get a tap on the shoulder and they're setting up a camera shot behind me.
Yeah.
Like, hey, and the guy's English is better than my Russian, so I can't ever complain. But he tells me, hey, you're going to do an interview. I'm like, oh, okay. So they're going to have me interview the president of Fight Night Global's Camille, right? I'm like, or do an interview. So Camille stands up, he's there, and I stand up. So they hand me the stick, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, why am I holding it? You know what I mean? Like, who's interviewing us? And then I'm sitting there.
Yeah.
So the camera goes red, and they sit there and go. And I'm like looking at the camera. I'm like, go with what?
You thought you were the interview subject. You're the interviewer.
I was the one doing the interview. I found out when everybody else found out.
Yeah. How'd that go?
They sit there and go, ask him questions. I'm sitting there going, and then, I mean, you probably on camera can see the wheels turning in my head going, oh, fuck. I'm the journalist right now?
Yeah.
So then I go, okay. I start talking to him. Okay. So then we get through it, right? It was pretty bad probably on my part, obviously. No prep, never done it before. No realization until about 5 seconds before I actually started talking that's what I was in. And so I sit back down and I'm like, okay. Like, and now you're going to interview Bigfoot Silva. I'm like, okay. You know, like, so after the next fight, get up, interview Bigfoot Silva. And that one I was a little bit better on.
Yeah.
And then they asked.
Well, you'd met him before.
Yeah, we've known each other.
I think you guys punched each other in the face a couple times.
We have tried to hurt each other,
Yeah.
but now we're friends.
Yeah.
And probably enemies in the future if we ever fight again, but that's how it works. So then they want me to interview this basketball player.
By the way, before you go to the basketball player, somebody posted something very funny about that Bigfoot interview. I did see that, and it had a picture of you interviewing him, and it said, Frank Mir has hit the Bigfoot trifecta. Number 1, hunt Bigfoot. Number 2, catch Bigfoot. Number 3, interview Bigfoot.
That's pretty clever. I like that.
Yeah.
If you see the picture too, Bigfoot looks good though. The beard,
Yeah.
the haircut, man.
Yeah.
I was actually pretty impressed with his new style.
I was happy to see him grow a full head of hair. I did not. I figured he was shaved. He had a shaved head for a reason.
Talking about a guy that looks drastically better.
I
I
know.
told him, like, without getting too homo, I'm like, hey man, you need to keep the haircut. You know, like,
Yeah.
it is definitely an improvement.
It was a good look for him.
Definitely a good look. So then they had
then a basketball player comes along.
yeah, and I can't remember the guy's name now. But I had to say it 3 or 4 times so I wouldn't forget it.
A guy who probably had a rougher time in that floor level toilet than you did.
Oh yeah, by far.
Yeah.
The guy was at least
Yeah.
6'10", if not 7 feet tall. I mean, he
Must have looked like a praying mantis trying to get down on the ground. Yeah.
So I'm looking up at him, and so he's an NBA star, probably one of Russia's best basketball players, is what I'm being told. So I interviewed him, and then when I sit back down, luckily they started finally giving me tips. They're like, okay, after the interviews, say this, go back to you. Just looking at the camera and smiling is kind of odd. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right. I mean, because again, I've never thought that I was going to interview anybody. So in that format, so I've done post-fight interviews, and then usually how you close out is you say the guy's name. You're like, and your winner, Joe Blow,
Yeah.
Where in this one I was like, okay, and thank you, so I looked at the camera. So that was then I sat back down a couple times, in between. I'm like, and the guy on my side from America, he's trying to give me tips, like, okay, at the end, start off looking at the camera, do this. I'm like, all right. So I'm getting instruction on how to do this on the fly, why this is live. I'm like, man,
Wow.
This is definitely a story for the kids,
Wow. Well, believe it or not, you were not the only person dealing with Russians over the last week.
Oh, is that what the story, are we getting to that?
It involves a brothel that I work at, and it involves some Russians. Yes. So we had everybody, if this is your first time on the Phone Booth Fighting Podcast, you may not know that I work at a brothel. That's where my day job is, and a legal brothel here in Nevada. If you're a regular listener, then you know it all too well. So we had a call from a Russian travel show. As I understood it, it sounded like it was like what would be on like the Russian version of the Travel Channel, but a pretty popular show from what I understood. And a guy that was the host of the show that was coming, and he's pretty well known, I guess, in Russia. This is what our PR department was telling me. So it was a big deal that these guys were coming. We get international media pretty regularly, but these Russians came, and they were going to do a couple of days shoot in at our brothel out in the desert. So they had a couple of requests. They were going to do their shoot on a Sunday, and what they wanted to know if we could send our limo to the strip to pick them up at their hotel, and then they film the ride out to the desert. Sure, no problem. And they wanted to get one of the girls to come along for the ride where they could talk to her in the car. Yes, we can do that too. So Sunday morning comes early. Of course, most of the girls are getting up, getting ready for church. There was one of the girls was staying behind to be part of this film shoot. So
just because sometimes I don't know when you're joking.
Yeah.
Are there any of the girls who really go to church?
No. So the limo
I would
driver,
be surprised though.
Yeah. And they if they go, they just sweat a lot. So they don't want to,
Yeah, but I mean, I've watched adult movies and I see a girl getting banged with a crucifix on.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
always thought that was kind of odd,
Yeah. That is a little strange. You know what? No, I will say though, while none of them actually go,
you're gonna get in trouble
that
now.
I'm
Just
aware
all the
of.
girls are heathens, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'll tell you that. Ironically, I do get in some strange religious discussions out there where I'm the resident atheist and the prostitute is debating religion with me and why I should be a believer. Yeah, but so one of the girls is going to ride in the limo with the driver, and they're going to go pick up the Russians. Russians are staying in a hotel in the Las Vegas Strip. So they go out, pick up the Russians. Now, it's an hour out to the brothel, more or less door to door from the Las Vegas Strip. And you really just drive through nothing but desert, except about midway through the drive, you go through this little one stoplight town called Indian Springs. Okay. And they have like one stoplight, a gas station, a post office, and a very small Air Force base.
That's where you buy fireworks, right?
No. You actually we have a fireworks stand next to the brothel. Actually, if you'd like to come out there to get your fireworks, but no, I mean, to my knowledge, they don't even have that there.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it is just some trailers and a little small Air Force base. So the Russians are in the limo with one of our self-employed prostitutes and the limo driver. Well, the limo driver and the prostitute get very nervous when they get to Indian Springs because the Russians, in Russian, by the way, speaking Russian, start filming the Air Force Base. And that is when the limo driver and the prostitute put their heads together and realize, oh no, we're not part of some documentary. This is all a ruse. We have been inadvertently looped into some sort of
part of some kind of
Russian spy ring, some sort of operation of international espionage, and we've got to let somebody know quick. I mean, while we can still get a message out before they do whatever they do to cut off our communications. So a desperate email went out. They actually got one of the cashiers at the brothel sort of involved in the hysteria as well. And an urgent communique was sent out that before we get any deeper into this thing, I mean, before we find ourselves testifying in front of Senate select committees or whatever, we may want to, put the brakes on this deal. Fortunately, cooler heads prevailed. A simple Google search, not unlike the one that involved your trip to the restroom there in Tajikistan, showed who these people. If they were in fact spies, they had very elaborate cover. So anyway, the shoot went ahead as planned, and hopefully this won't impact any future political aspirations that any of us may have. But I thought that was very funny. I mean, it was that multiple people.
The driver and the working girl.
Yeah.
Do they really believe you now, or do they feel you're part of the conspiracy? It's
a great question. I mean, I use my skills of persuasion, so I hope they believe me, but that's a very fair question.
You might be a Russian spy.
I could very well be. That is the...
And that's why I'm going back and forth all the time.
Well,
I'm bringing back our information.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think
if I get stopped at the next customs, I'm going to be pissed off that I made this joke.
Yeah, I think as I said on a previous episode that we taped, I would wonder whether or not you were being used as some sort of operative. But given the fact that you had to call Brian Lacey over to your hotel room to figure out how to sign into Skype to talk to me,
yes,
I don't know that you're the best guy for the job.
I could be fronting this whole time.
Yeah,
I could be a technological savant.
It was amazing to me that we had. I mean, because it was multiple people putting their heads together on this theory. It's not like it was just one person. It was like, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Yeah. I see what's going on here. We've got to call in the military quickly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really something.
So that's what you had to take, because we were scheduled to talk on the phone, I believe.
That's right. Yeah, I was having to deal with kind of an urgent issue that involved that. I also thought about you this past weekend when actually I was watching WrestleMania. I used to love pro wrestling as a kid, and it heavily influenced me in terms of leading me into pursuit of an entertainment career and things like that. And I also when I got into my late 20s, I worked in it for a little bit. I worked in a regional promotion called the National Wrestling Alliance in Texas that it was kind of like a feeder system, like a minor league for, like where, I don't know, like a girl that does well in Invicta gets a UFC deal or something like that. So it was kind of like that. And so I don't really follow it too much anymore, although I'll watch it when it's on. I like hearing our friends Chael Sonnen and Joel talk about it and things like that because I know they're fans, so that's always interesting to me. But anyway, WrestleMania is the Super Bowl of the pro wrestling year. It's the biggest event. And so it was on yesterday, and I was watching, and a former foe of yours, Brock Lesnar, was on the card. No longer the UFC champion, but apparently still has what it takes to be the WWE champion because he won the title last night, defeating Bill Goldberg, who had come back for.
I don't know. Bill still wrestles.
Yeah, well, he hasn't in like a decade, but he's come back, and so it's kind of a meeting of the legends, right? So Brock Lesnar wins the title. Now, are you familiar with this little guy? I mean, he's not little, but he's portly. But Paul Heyman.
No.
This guy is like his man. So you know how the bad guys have managers that come to the ring with them.
Is he the guy? Because I've heard people tell me his there's a guy that talks for Brock now.
Yeah, right? That guy. Yeah. Brock's not the best on the mic. So this guy.
Connecting syllables is not his best strong
right. So this guy does all of the bad guy talking, which is very important in wrestling. But as art imitates reality, in real life, he's kind of a spokesperson for him. He does interviews, and I guess Brock authorizes him to talk about things he may or may not do in the future and things like that. And I saw Paul Heyman saying that he thought that, well, you can't rule out that Brock Lesnar might return to the UFC one day. His suspension is up, I think, in a year or something, and maybe it's July. Maybe it was only 1 year. I can't remember if it was 1 year or 2 years what he ended up getting. But Brock's capable of anything, and he can succeed at anything, and you never know, he may just come back to the UFC. But all of that reminded me to tell you a funny story about the time that this guy Paul Heyman threatened to sue me when I was a kid. You want to hear that?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'd kind of forgotten about this story, but seeing the guy reminded me. So what happened was, Paul Heyman.
I just want to see what the guy looks like.
Yeah. So what happened was, I was working in my little, independent wrestling promotion before I really got into radio full time. And Paul Heyman was running this wrestling promotion called ECW, stood for Extreme Championship Wrestling. And they were kind of a smaller minor league alternative. They weren't the big giant show of the WWE. They were kind of the cool independent promotion that a lot of hardcore fans knew and loved. But they were always having money trouble.
Hold on 1 second. Our friend Joe's here.
Oh, okay. All right. Joe's going to come visit. Seeing someone dancing down the hallway there.
Is he locked out, though?
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Let me key him in through our sophisticated security system here in the bunker. There we go. Come on in. Hi, Joe. How's it going? Come on in. No, you're fine.
Just sit down, man. We're just...
Yeah. Just work right around there. There you go. If you want to go down toward that corner on Frank, because there's a camera right there in the middle. There we go.
Over your right shoulder.
All right. Should be good. Okay.
Have you met Joe before?
No, we haven't met. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Richard.
British brother.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Just moved back to Vegas, so.
Welcome to the bunker. So you're just in time for my story about when Paul Heyman threatened to sue me when I was a teenager.
Pro wrestling at all?
Okay. Well,
it's about as much as I do. Okay.
Yeah. So you learned something. So he had this little promotion that was a real fan favorite called ECW, but they were always having money trouble. So they were going to come to Dallas and do a show called, running a show. Like he was going to promote a show in Dallas. Well, my little promotion, which was far smaller than his, saw an opportunity to hire some of the wrestlers, because they weren't under exclusive contract to him, right? So imagine if you fought for the UFC, but you didn't have a UFC contract for whatever reason. So
it would be a match by match basis.
Yeah, exactly. So hey,
or event by event.
Yeah, if I had the ability to, UFC's coming to town anyway, and you're going to be here. So if I somehow had the logistical ability to, pay you while you were here to fight again and save on the travel because the UFC has already flown you in and put you up, then
that makes sense.
That would work for me. Now, what he should have done was put into the contracts of any of his performers that they couldn't do that for anybody else, but I think he wasn't paying them any type of advances or guarantees or any kind of thing like that that would afford him the ability to make demands of people like that, right?
Okay.
So we had signed a few of his guys up who at this point desperately needed money because he owed them a bunch of back money, to work our show. Now, what happened was...
But you guys weren't trying to block him. It wasn't like you asked him to work on the night of his show, right?
No, in fact, it'd be after. It wasn't even... Yeah, it would be after his show.
So,
the guys would come and work
now
ours.
There's no risk of the guys being injured with your show because they're doing his show first.
True.
Where's the downside for him?
Well, probably what his thinking is going to be is in terms of the draw. Because probably what he's going to think is, well, these guys are, why would you pay to see them on my show if they're going to go work another show and it might be a cheaper ticket? Now, his show, and wrestling fans will understand this, I mean, his show would have been infinitely bigger and better and more impressive and more star-studded and all the rest of that than ours. To address your question, no, there really was no reason to worry about, cannibalizing the product. But nonetheless, he was. So one of his wrestlers, one of his talents, had told us that, oh man, I'm glad I've got this gig with you guys because he owes me all this money and, they're having money problems, so he's got a bunch of IOUs out there and everything. Well, he canceled the Dallas show. And at this point, we're still a few weeks out, right? He cancels the Dallas show, his Dallas show on pretty short notice. And he tried to tell his wrestlers, his talent, that the reason that they canceled the show was because a couple of his selfish wrestlers had contracted with us to work this other show and that killed ticket sales. But I knew the promoter of the venue where he was putting on his show. And that promoter told me that he had canceled the show prior to all of that because he didn't have enough money to put it on. So you see what happened? Really, he canceled it in and of himself because he didn't have the money to do it. It
looks better to call it on you guys.
He used us as a scapegoat, right? So I got the letter that he wrote the promoter canceling the show, and I put it on our website. So that exposed him. And, he threatened to sue me for putting it up there.
Is there any basis to sue someone for that?
I don't think so. No, I mean, it's not like it was a stolen document. No, I mean, the guy, one of the parties gave it to me, and it wasn't a contract. It wasn't like, it was like a email or something like that. And nothing really came up. But I never forgot that. I always remembered it. That was like my first experience with this guy. I was like, who is this guy, like threatening to sue me? And it's a very like bad guy pro wrestler thing to do anyway. The bad guy's always threatening to involve lawyers and litigation and things like that. So there's my Paul Heyman story. All right, good. By the way, it looks like our internet feed is holding up nicely here in the Phone Booth Fighting bunker, so that is a positive indication of things to come. We're actually kind of trying out the Wi-Fi signal in here as much as anything else to make sure we can hold a live video stream, because we got a TV monitor up on the wall. We're going to be able to Skype in guests. We're going to be able to have some guests in studio here. We've got a nice guest couch set up, and so we'll be inviting some folks in to join the party. What about fights? Did you see any? Were you able to see anything over this weekend? We had the Rampage Jackson King Mo rematch.
Just highlights, and basically it looked like the first fight.
Yeah, I thought that first fight King Mo won, and of course the decision went Rampage's way. This one went the way of King Mo, 29-28 across the board. I gave him rounds 1 and 3. I think the other three judges. Like I'm a judge. The three judges did as well. Rampage landed a few strikes in the second that was probably did enough damage to get him the round. But I guess the broader topic is King Mo has his next fight made. He's going to be on that pay-per-view card against Ryan Bader. So that answers that question. We're talking about Ryan Bader signed with Bellator, and that makes a lot of sense to put that fight on that Bellator, 180 pay-per-view they're doing for Madison Square Garden. So that's what King Mo's plans are going to be in June on the undercard of Chael Sonnen and Vanderlei Silva. The real question is, where does Rampage go from here? Because, he's been on a winning streak, and he's always such a kind of a confusing fighter for me, because he's been around forever, of course, since the Pride days, and I think that's where a lot of the nostalgia for him comes in. But he always his focus and maybe I guess I should just say desire to fight always seems to kind of wax and wane. And I noticed he had given some comments about interviews this week, saying that he kind of in some ways regretted ever getting involved in the sport, that it made him not know his family as well, and it pulled him out of Memphis where he was from and things like that, and like he was getting a little
bitter.
Yeah, but I was going to say more kind of reflective of I made a lot of money along the way and I achieved fame and fortune, but maybe it cost me some things too. I don't know, maybe not the best mindset to be in for fight week. His contract is now up in Bellator. No more Bellator contract. Scott Coker had an interesting comment. He said that he thought Rampage might still have a fight or two left on his UFC deal, because there was that weird litigation between the two of them, that between UFC and Rampage, and I don't know that everybody was absolutely for sure where all that stood. So if he does fight anymore, I guess maybe he might have to look at going back to the UFC. I don't know. I've always just kind of been, I think he's been able to market himself. He's kind of been able to disguise that fluctuation in focus to me as an observer over the years, because he still comes out to the cage with the toe chain and the howl and all that kind of stuff, and he's still good for some sound bites and things like that, and he's always been marketable. But man, when it's all said and done and you just look at his career, I mean, it's going to be a real roller coaster ride of ebbs and flows in terms of level of commitment. Have you followed him that close? I mean, obviously you guys aren't in the same weight class, but he's been around forever. Have you watched him very closely?
Yeah, and actually we've crossed paths a couple times, training wise and social wise. I like him. I think the misconnect is that there are some guys out there that are as fighters that are very dedicated to the sport of fighting.
Yeah.
And I think that Quentin is a natural fighter. Mm-hmm. And he'll show up and fight anybody. And very talented and both mentally strong. I think he's physically fit, has a lot of natural attributes. But I don't know if being a professional fighter was ever really an ambition of his. As funny as that sounds, I don't know if I ever got that from him, that he wants to be a professional fighter, to be a world champion. I think that he got into fighting, that he got paid, and he liked to fight people. And I think that in itself was a selling point in a lot of ways. But I think sometimes when you see him fall short in situations or not prepare exactly, I think that's because he falls back upon the fact that he's just a fighter and maybe not a professional, trying to be a professional athlete type fighter.
I've you know, with Rampage, I've always wondered how much of that was just maybe not being particularly motivated to have to move beyond natural ability he might have had, like you just said. He's got natural attributes, but you know, like coming into the fight this past weekend with King Mo, that fight was at heavyweight, and there's no reason that that King Mo should ever fight at heavyweight. I mean, these guys fought at middleweight, and he's a natural light heavyweight. He doesn't need to be fighting at heavyweight. Rampage, although he'd had heavyweight fights in his past, was, you know, saw his real success at light heavyweight. So it just means that Rampage is not going to have to cut weight. He weighed in at 253 pounds and was sort of trying to say that, well, this is going to be an advantage because I'm going to have 40 pounds on King Mo, and I can use that size advantage. But there's no size advantage to that when you're on bottom.
Yeah.
And it just, as soon as I heard that, I just thought, boy, this is one of those things. I mean, I hate to say there's sure things ever in MMA, and not to slight his abilities that I know he has, but if you tell me that he's going to go in and he's going to weigh that much, I'm just going to think, well, and you know, he can land a shot, and Mo's been knocked out, but if you're telling me that's not going to be the outcome of the fight, then I'm going to guess he didn't win it.
Right. And if anything, I think it actually hurt him, in my opinion, because having that extra weight made him slower, and I think threw less punches. I think that, you know, he would have been much better off, even if it was a heavyweight fight. He didn't want to suck down to 205. If he had shown up at 220, 225, I think that would have been ideal, because he still would have been quick and fast and basically had the body that he normally has at 205, just without the last 10 days of trying to, you know, to remove water weight.
Yeah.
So he would have felt great. And then that version of Quentin, I think, would have been extremely dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we've seen the. I feel like we probably haven't seen the last of him.
I mean, it's not like Quentin. I don't know. The advantages of most fight fans have is that most of the fighters, they get used to a certain lifestyle, and to ask them to do something else in life to acquire that same type of monetary gains is that's a lot. You know, if you get guys that can do other things in the sport, you know, Chael Sonnen, you know, he might end up retiring, you know, because his ability to do so many different other things make it to where you make it comfortable living. You know, you go into acting, or, you know, and you know, Quentin's had his run at the, you know, the A Team, had a good appearance, but I haven't really seen him do much since then. You know?
Yeah. And even that, going back to that, because I remember I interviewed Dana right around that time, because you remember the circumstances surrounding, he was supposed to fight Rashad Evans, and they were supposed to fight in Memphis, Rampage's hometown. Rampage pulled out of that pay-per-view because he wanted to go film the A-Team, and they ended up having to put BJ Penn on the card in Memphis.
I was there.
Were you on that card?
Yeah, I fought.
Oh, well, who did you fight? Do you remember? You were on that card?
Shit. I think Czech Congo.
Okay.
Does
Yeah.
that sound right?
Yeah. So you were like in the co-main, probably? For that one? Yeah. Are you gonna Wikipedia your own record so you can figure out? Okay.
That's sad, right?
Yeah, it's sad.
Man.
Especially if it turns out you weren't on the card. Let's see if you were even on it.
I'm pretty sure I was there. It sounds right.
Well, you might have been there. Maybe you just had crosswords with someone in the parking lot and you remembered it as a fight.
Oh, I was there.
While you're looking at it.
Czech Congo.
Oh, okay.
Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah.
UFC 107.
You won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Penn versus Sanchez.
You already knew that, though. You didn't have to look up to see if you won.
No,
you remember winning.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, you won. Yeah.
It's the losing sometimes I don't remember. No.
Yeah, but I remember when I interviewed Dana, he said something to me, the crux of which was, we've got BJ Penn fighting in fucking Memphis. Like, the whole point of doing this Memphis card was so that Rampage Jackson could fight in his hometown, and then he pulled out to do the A-Team. That was also at a point where Dana had a lot less experience with his athletes getting movie roles, so I think he was none too. That was before the days of Ronda Rousey. I think he was none too pleased by all that. But anyway, just going back even that far, yes, that's a great opportunity and everything, but that even that many years ago shows you that even then, Rampage, like you said, was kind of, how much of this do I really enjoy, and how much of it is my natural ability, and I've been able to do it, but there's other things I'd prefer to be doing too. I mean, if you could tell Rampage Jackson that he could play video games professionally, I think that might really interest him more than anything else. I know he loves playing video games.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think it's just he had an incident, I think, over in his junior college where, he got into an altercation with somebody and hurt them. And so I think he learned early on that if push comes to shove, that he's a really, he has the natural ability to fight people.
Yeah.
He hits hard. He's tough. He has a good wrestling base that a lot of people don't really acknowledge. And so, and heavy hands. And so, you see him in the fights. A lot of times he just, especially early in his career, was extremely raw. People, slammed them down, didn't really know what he was doing, and it was kind of going there in a kamikaze style. And as he actually become more successful, people, cornered him down, and he got much more efficient training. But I remember one time talking to Quentin, and he self-admitted, he goes, man, in the gym, man, I'm nothing. He goes, everybody kicks my ass. I was like, really? He goes, yeah. And I was kind of looking at him like, huh. And then it made me realize at that time, I'm looking at him like, that's because you really don't try to win any. And not that we have those guys that are the gym warriors that, that's their UFC, that's their Super Bowl, every practice, every drill, they're trying to, and then 99.9% of the time, you'll never hear that guy's name in the world because he's burnt out by the time it comes to the real fight.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a balance, but when he made that statement to me that, in the gym, I'm just not really that good. I'm like, that's because you never really try in the gym. In my thought, and I could be wrong. Maybe you just, I feel that natural killer in him comes out when lights go on, cameras are on him, and he's able to get into that mode. And so, I think he has that ability. And so if people fight him in those type of fights where it's a fight, I think that he still will have a lot of success going on into the future. If people want to brawl with him or fight a high pace, go for submissions, he'll pick you up and slam you. And, but if you want to fight a King Mo style of fight, I think that's always going to be difficult for him, even though he does have a good wrestling base. But, I think too mentally, that doesn't put him in a fight. I think if you wrestle with him and kind of pin him down, that doesn't really call out his inner lion. I think that in a lot of ways, he doesn't even see that as losing a fight because it's like, you out wrestled me. So what? Even though he gets the L at the end of the night, there's no personal disparity. There's no inner turmoil that, no, I got to rise above this. I don't want to lose a sport fight. I don't think he cares about losing a sport fight. I think that if you start punching him in the face and, and pushing him around and throwing him around, I think that that'll incite the inner instinct of the killer instinct that he has in him, and he'll fight back and brawl with you, and, he'll put, left hook you into the next time zone. But if you just kind of point fight with him, I think that, you've seen fights before, like even the Machida fight, which he ended up winning the decision, but you can kind of see fighting that kind of guy doesn't, I think Quentin's best fights are guys like a Vanderlei Silva. Because Vanderlei is a person who's going to put you in a war. Yeah. He's going to go toe-to-toe.
He's going to bring that fight out of you.
Right. And I think Vanderlei fights back, in that type of situation. You're going to see the best of Quentin. So if he does have a future and chooses to still fight, I think that Scott Coker's or the Dana Whites of the world are best if they want to utilize him to the best of their abilities. They have to put him with other guys that are finishers, not point fighters like King Mo is, who's, uses strategy to take you down, hold you down. He's not really hitting you to knock you out. He's hitting you to score points so the referee, the judges, give you the nod.
And you know what? You may just be making a case there for him taking a look at re-signing with Bellator, because that I think is where you're going to find more of those kind of guys. Look, Vanderlei Silva's still there. He's about to fight Chael Sonnen. I mean, you tell me you couldn't market a Vanderlei Silva Rampage Jackson fight, a Pride throwback fight over there in Bellator. So I don't know. It sounded like after this weekend, Scott Coker wasn't too terribly excited about re-signing him, or at least was maybe keeping his cards kind of close to the vest. But I think there's something there.
And I think that's just kind of King Mo's style too. Just makes for.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you. I'm not. I'm never biting at the bit if I find out King Mo's fighting. I'm like, I really got to see that fight. It's like, I think he's a good fighter. He wins fights. Exciting to watch? Not really. It's kind of like, even the last couple years of George St. Pierre's career. Mm-hmm. I think that he's a great fighter, but the George that fought like Matt Hughes the second time and until I guess the George up until he got knocked out by Matt Serra, I was a very big fan of. You've seen striking and movement and elbows on the ground. I mean, Sean Shirk, he took him down and, he destroyed him with ground and pound.
Yeah.
Then the George St. Pierre post Matt Serra era, I still had a lot of respect. I think he's a great martial artist, but as far as like, oh God, I want to watch this guy fight, it's like, not really.
It was a lot more wrestling based. It was a lot more
control, point fighting,
game plan-ish.
Yeah, I call it point fighting when you're trying to win round by round, and then at the end you have more rounds won, and then you win the fight. To me, it's like, well, you're purely fighting. Like there are guys right now that are in the gym that when they go against the cage or they're on the ground, they're hitting maneuvers that are going to win the opinion of the judge. Like, okay, well, in this position, step onto half guard and be on top, and now you can work from here. It's like, well, you're not working to finish. You're working to be in a superior position so that the judges are giving you writing time, essentially, for lack of a better term, and counting you on top. Or when you're against the cage, it's like, well, you're only working for the takedown and the pin here so that you can, establish that you're winning the fight. You're playing a game, and that's the part of the sport that I'm not a fan of, because I don't think that's really fighting. I thought that the basis of us doing martial arts, when we first saw Hoist Gracie out there in UFC 1, was to finish with a choke or with a knockout. Get the guy to tap because he can't continue. And on the flip side of that, I get annoyed when people sit there and go, well, don't leave it up to the judge's decision. I'm like, well, there's two different fighters. There are those fighters that are point fighting, and they're looking to get a nod from the judge. But then there's times where you have two guys that just go to war with each other, and I couldn't knock you out, I couldn't submit you, not because I wasn't trying, not because I'm trying to get the judge to give me the nod, but you're that good, and you stopped every one of my submission attempts and every one of my knockout shots, and vice versa. I stopped you and you stopped me, and at the end of it, now we have to rely upon a judge to decide who won. That's when I think judges, that is to me the point of having a judge. It's like, okay, you guys tried to finish each other. You're both so good that you couldn't finish each other.
So we have a backup plan.
So this is the backup plan.
That makes sense.
This is okay. Well,
safety net.
This is our safety net. Yeah. We're not going to have a draw every time someone doesn't get knocked out or submitted. We're going to have a winner here, but but again, people just have mutated that concept to just like, okay, well, that's my plan A. I'm going to fight for a judge's decision, and if on the way to my plan A, somehow you drop your hands or you let me get on your neck and I can get the submission or I get the knockout, great. But I'm not fighting for it. I'm not looking for it. I'm trying to just fight safe and sound. And if it works out, it works out. But if not, my plan A is to win a judge's decision. And I mean, come on. I think that's more than a majority of the fighters now I see do that.
That's an interesting way to look at it. It's almost kind of like what a plea bargain has become in court. It was designed so, okay, we've got somebody that we're very likely going to convict, but we can save money if we just offer them a plea deal, and that morphed into prosecutors realizing that they could play to the plea bargain and say to the person, look, even if you feel like you're innocent, we can scare you enough to where you're going to try to play it safe and just take the reduced sentence or whatever.
We'll hang over the possibility of doing 20, play it safe, and just do 5.
Yeah.
If you go to court, the consequences will be heavy. You're right, and that's what fighting's become. That's why and I don't think all the fighters do that. I mean, Ferguson doesn't do that. Cerrone doesn't do that. Khabib definitely doesn't do that. Like, there's a difference. There's an example how Khabib Nurmagomedov, he does ground and pound compared to some other people, and I won't be a dick and name them out, but there are other people that do ground and pound to the body, to the head, and then they stop. To the body, to the head, and then they stop. It's like, you're not trying to hurt anybody. You're just trying to score points, to look busy and work. You'll even hear the corner say it. Trust me, anytime you hear a cornerman go, work, that's a guy who's I'm trying to win a judge's decision type of fighter. Mm-hmm. What do you mean work?
Yeah.
I mean, be busy, be active for the sake of being busy and being active. Now, if you have a guy going, okay, he's dropping his hand here, he's looking there for wrist control, giving you ideas on how to go for the finish, to me, I think that's what the fight should be evolving to, is how do I knock you out or finish you? Just trying to wrestle you to death, or dance around and score enough points with my hands that the judge, and you didn't hit me, I hit you more than you hit me. God, that's boring.
Yeah. Well, you and I are going to have a chance to try to steer young fighters away from that type of approach, because we have a little bit of a reveal here on Phone Booth Fighting tonight for all of our listeners. This has been in the works for a while, and now the paperwork is official, so we can talk about it. But Real Water, get real at drinkrealwater.com. A great bottled water that Frank and I both drink. They have been with us for quite some time here on the show as a sponsor, keeping us hydrated, and a bottle of real water is never very far from either one of us, just like right here on the table inside the Phone Booth Fighting bunker. But they also have an amateur fight promotion called Real MMA. And we've been to a few of the cards, and Frank's been in the ring presenting some belts and things like that to some winners. But we were talking with Brent Jones, who's the owner over at Real Water and Real MMA, for some time about becoming part owners, minority owners in the Real Mixed Martial Arts promotion. And surprise of all surprises, you and I both passed the paperwork with the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and it's official. So now we're part owners in a amateur mixed martial arts promotion, partner.
I'm glad we didn't have to go in front of anybody.
Well,
some of us don't look as a
yeah. Well, that's the funny thing, though. Is I for one know for sure I can pass a federal criminal background check. Like, I always enjoy the process of just kind of the look of shock and surprise on everybody's face when they see how squeaky clean and boring I really am.
And I'm aware that you are, but like everybody who's watching knows, you don't necessarily look the part.
No, I don't. I'm deceptive that way. It's my cover, like somebody on the Vice Squad. Well, the next mixed martial arts Real MMA promotion card that we're going to be a part of is coming up April 21st here in Las Vegas at Sam's Town Casino. It's Real MMA 14, and it's not just any night. This is going to be a real coming out party for the kickoff of our partnership with Real MMA, Frank, because we were able to involve Shannon Knapp and the Invicta Fighting Championships promotion in a very interesting way. So what's going to happen is Shannon has agreed to put on the table a 3-fight contract with Invicta Fighting Championships. We are going to kick off that night, April 21st, here in Las Vegas at Sam's Town, an 8-woman, 125-pound flyweight tournament, and that tournament will play out over the summer at our various fight cards here in Las Vegas, and then the winner of it will be awarded a 3-fight contract with Invicta Fighting Championship, courtesy of their president, Shannon Knapp. Shannon's actually going to be here April 21st with us in person to kick it off, and then hopefully we'll get her back at the end of the summer, early fall to present the contract. This is exciting. I'm very excited to be involved in the promotional side of it, and especially to be able to do things like work with Shannon, who you and I are both the big fans of. I think this is an exciting way to kick it off. One of the reasons we're talking about it, by the way, not that we're going to bring all the listeners along for the ride, even if you're not in the Las Vegas area and you can't come out and see the fights, you'll be able to follow it online, and we'll put up clips on our social media and things like that. But also, if anybody out there knows an amateur female fighter who can make the 125-pound weight and thinks that she might be up for competing for a 3-fight Invicta contract, send her our way, because we're going to be looking for new talent all the time. So that doesn't mean that she couldn't jump into the tournament at some point if she passes muster with the matchmakers. So anyway, so this is all very exciting. And you think about just a few years ago, Frank, people weren't talking about women getting 3-fight contracts with any mixed martial arts promotion just a few years ago, let alone an all-female mixed martial arts promotion. It really is a sign of the times. Yeah,
that's why, Ronda Rousey really did make such an explosion in the mixed martial arts world of female martial arts, and it's sad that she, I guess it could be kind of upsetting that she's kind of ended her career as of now the way she did, because I think she has a lot of things to be proud of that she contributed to the sport and the evolution of what the female MMA is. I think that Gina Carano, I think, first kind of started getting it to be somewhat mainstream. And then, Cyborg just never really was enough of a personality, I feel, to push it over or be enough of a draw. And then, really, Ronda Rousey is what, if it wasn't for her, I don't think there would have been females in the UFC.
Yeah,
I think it was her explosion in Strikeforce and becoming the champion that finally won Dana over to allow the women to go over there and compete.
I'm getting a few comments on our Phone Booth Fighting Facebook page that are watching the live video stream, Frank, that are saying your microphone is having some issues. Try putting it, if you don't mind, put it back in the stand. Let's see if we can get, because it sounds fine in my headphones, but
how about now?
All right, we'll see what everybody says. If you guys are still on the stream, let us know if Frank's mic clears up a little bit. We are beta testing the video stream, so we appreciate you guys being our test audience. Hey, speaking of issues with audio, I got to tell you my story. Last night doing stand up, I was on stage at LA Comedy Club. Great show, great bill last night. Paul Ogata was headlining, who was very, very funny, and I've worked with him before. And in the middle, the feature act was a guy named Lamont Ferguson, who I'd never worked with before. I didn't know him. He'd never worked the club before, but had opened for George Carlin, which was instantly interesting to me because that's my favorite of all time. It's really smart comedy. Skills Hudson was on the bill too. He's always great. Anyway, it was just one of those nights, where it was like every fight delivered. You know what I mean? So we were having a great show, and it was a really packed house too over there, and a great Sunday night crowd. But there was just at stage left, give you an idea of what stand-up comedians deal with. There was a table.
I'll say bachelorette party.
Well, kind of close. Kind of close.
If you're working a club, the worst thing in the world is a bachelorette party.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
This was a group of 6 or 7 middle-aged women who all kind of had the same bob haircut. They were like carbon, like cookie cutter of each other. A bunch of
moms of the night out of the town. Huh?
But moms out on the town, and it's Vegas. I think it was moms out of town, in Vegas kind of thing.
That's one thing I don't understand. Being born and raised here, is that people will come here, but like I'll go to Ohio and I don't act a fool just because I'm not in my hometown.
Yeah.
And the same person, if they live in LA, they go to Cleveland, they don't act like an asshole.
Yep.
But for some reason, we have like just a stigma that people feel like they get out of jail free card. Like if you come to Vegas, feel free to act like an ass.
I think that's right. I think it's like no matter what I'm doing, I'm not going to be the worst one. You know what I mean? I think that's the way they look at
And
it.
I've always been, because I'm like, well, what does it matter where you are? Don't you feel uncomfortable acting like an asshole?
Yeah. Well, they showed up pretty drunk, and they were chatty during my set, but not as bad as they were by the time they've done some more drinking.
Anytime I'm at a comedy show,
yeah.
I make sure that I do not want to ever draw the attention
that's right.
of the guy who has the mic. Because everybody can hear him.
Who makes fun of people for a living.
And B, he's probably really good at it.
Yeah,
probably better than you are.
Yeah, he's going to turn it on you. That's
right. You don't
yeah.
want that guy who just sits there and just probably has hours of ammo that he's already been, like you think you're the first person to fuck with this guy?
Yep. He's just waiting on his opportunity. They weren't so bad for the it wasn't they weren't heckling, let's say, but they were just loud.
A distraction.
They were distracting, and it actually came to a head when one of the audience members, this guy, called him out. He was like, "Hey, I can't hear." Like right in the middle of the stage, he's like, "You're in my right ear here. I'm hearing your conversation. I can't hear what's going on stage." These 6 women kind of gang up on this dude. It really kind of stopped down the show for a little bit. They didn't quite have to throw him out, but there was a whole discussion outside afterward. Fortunately, the show was about 15 minutes from being done, or else they might have had to have escorted him out. But I was talking to the bouncers, and I was thinking about bringing this up on the show just because of your history with bouncing. But they were telling me
women out sucks.
Well, that's what they said. They said,
worst.
it really is the worst. They said, you'd think that,
men know that I will snatch your ass up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but women have, like in all situations, like even if you're not a bouncer, you'll relate to this. If you get you pull up next to a car, and it's another guy in the car, the chances of him, if he might have been flipping you off, but now that you can stare at each other, he probably calms down because he knows that if you get out of the car, he's going to have to fight you.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a respect that men have for other men going, shit, is what I'm screwing around with right now worth having to get into an altercation, a physical altercation with other man? So because there's that unspoken rule that like, look, we can talk shit, but at a certain point we're going to throw down. How much is what you're talking shit mean to you? Because whether you win or lose to this fight, we're going to fight. And most humans have an aversion towards violence. I don't want to get violent. But women, especially that's why I think having a female bouncer is a must. Have a girl, because then there's not that stigma that, well, you can't put your hands on me. It's like, well, she's a woman. She can snatch you up too, Yeah. Whereas as a male bouncer, when you address a female, they have this bravado, just like sometimes women in public. I see women get in men's face, in a man's face, much more aggressively. And you'll see her boyfriend or her husband standing there like, oh, shit. Because he knows that, well, if I speak up, this guy's going to blast me. But my wife or girlfriend, she can fucking mouth off because social norm says that he's not going to probably put her teeth down her throat.
Yeah.
And so it gives women sometimes an extra level of bravado that is a false sense of security that sometimes I got to admit, I don't hate it when I see it come crashing down with certain women.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's that girl that it's like, I know you're not supposed to hit ladies.
Yeah.
But when she kind of doesn't act like a lady anymore and she's really just pushed the boundaries or pushes in a guy, and it gets physical and it's like she gets popped back. I'm like, okay, don't hit her twice, but maybe one shot for an attitude adjustment. I don't know. There is that, but being a bouncer, it's rough, man. I remember anytime there's strippers fight. Well, you had to deal with that shit, strippers fighting each other, or if fucking God forbid. That's why we would never let women in the club by themselves. You had to come with a guy. And so, meaning that the main reason was we didn't want some wife or girlfriend to show up while hubby is fucking, you know, in the VIP room blowing their joint account.
Yeah, yeah.
It's ugly. But then women would bring their brother. You know, I know Bob's down at the club. Let's go. And so they run in, and sure enough, I mean, we don't know. I can't tell if that's your brother or your boyfriend. And so the girl will come in with a guy, and then all of a sudden you'll have a female dancer getting her ass kicked by the wife or the girlfriend who showed up, and then you have to jump in there and grab them, and then you have a woman, you know, screaming, "Don't touch me," you know, and it's funny because when I was younger, that used to actually get me not to, you know, don't touch me, and my natural response is not to touch them, until I got older and realized, well, male or female, if you're physically assaulting another person, I can wrap you up. You know what I mean? Like, no problem. Like, whatever I can do to a man, I can do to a woman. You know what I mean? Like, if you're violently attacking a patron, then I can defend them, and that's within my rights to, you know, if you don't like the way the wrist lock feels, we'll stop punching the girl in the face.
Yeah.
You know, and so, yeah, man, it is... I've had some bad experiences. It sucks. Like, I will deal with an angry man 10 out of 10 times. Dealing with women is the worst.
Yeah, yeah. He... I think we should read a couple of iTunes reviews, Frank. If you
what does your
do
bouncer
that.
say about it? Same thing.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. He was saying the same thing. He's like, man, that is the absolute worst. He's like, people think it's different. They think that you know, you don't want to deal with the big burly drunken guy.
So much easier. Much easier.
Yeah.
The more prone a guy is to violence, to me, the easier it is to deal with him.
Yeah.
The more a person's wordy and just loud and just a non-violent person, because then also too, men that will resort to violence very quickly are easy to deal with as a bouncer, because now you open the door for me. If as a bouncer you get physical, well, then I can get physical, because there's an escalation of violence that, you know, even if I criminally am not in trouble, I have to defend myself civilly, because you can still sue civilly. I have to sit there and go, well, you know, in front of a judge, go, why did you grab him? Well, because he tried to punch me. Okay, well, so then you threw him to the ground. Yes. Well, what did you do then? Well, why did you hit him in the stomach? Well, because he put his teeth on my forearm and started biting me. So I wanted him to stop biting me, so I hit him in the stomach. Okay, you know, see what I mean? Like, there's an escalation of, like, the more violent you get, the more violent I'm allowed to be to defend myself and diffuse the situation. But if you get a person who's just a loudmouth guy who doesn't put his hands on you or doesn't make any kind of movement that he's going to try to be physical, that's the worst, because then you can't really escalate, because now you can't be the first one to get really physically violent, you know.
Let's check in with iTunes reviews. And by the way, you do us a big favor if you go on the Phone Booth Fighting iTunes page and you click on those 5 stars. That is a huge help to us. It keeps us high in the ratings on the iTunes podcast charts. And if you really want to go above and beyond, write us a kind line or two, and we like to read those on the air, like what we're about to do right now, Frank. The first one comes from K. Purcell. I guess that's the right screen name. They say, I was hooked when I heard the brothel story on The Fighter and the Kid. That was well played. I've been hooked ever since. Well, thank you very much. They're talking about last time you and I went on Fighter and the Kid with Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen, and I told a brothel story. How about you read one there?
This one's a great podcast by Dr. Brett White. I've been binge listening to these podcasts after hearing Brian Lacey talk about them on Brad Pickett's podcast. Oh, it's great. The One Punch.
Yeah, One Punch podcast.
I like it. I really enjoy the insight and perspectives of Frank and Richard, and with regards to MMA as well as life events. I often different opinions from Richard's take on politics. However, I completely appreciate his calm, thoughtful, and non-defensive stance on issues, which I find interesting and makes me really consider my stance. Love the family work and training anecdotes. Keep up the great work, and keep up the podcast coming.
Thanks, Brett, or Doctor, I guess I should say. I think that's the first time we've ever had a PhD write us a review.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. We've got this one from, is this another PhD? Dr. Gopta Black Belt?
I'm willing to bet him.
He says, great podcast, smart guys, and entertaining. Cheers. He's giving away his geography there, that cheers. He may be British. They say cheers over there. You know that, right?
Yeah, I've got that a few times. Yeah. Mate.
Hit us with one more there. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great combination with Frank and Richard. This is from Tree Trunk.
Mm-hmm.
That could be an adult name.
Could be.
Adult star name.
My old gay porn name.
Let's get back to bringing Frank's old opponents. Thought that was a great idea from Richard. We tried.
Yeah. All right. We did try.
We tried. That was supposed to be our debuting of this room.
Yeah.
Was Richard worked out.
All right. Hold on. Let me just tell him real quick before we reveal.
Thought that was a great idea from Richard. Keep them coming, guys. It really helps me on the fly. Keeps on the fly and might continue to work.
Well, okay. So first of all, Tree Trunk, we will have more Frank's opponents on. Fortunately, we have a lot to choose from. We have a lot of opponents to choose from. Frank's had a prolific career, so
hopefully I can add to it. I'll make your life easier.
Yeah. We started with Tim Sylvia. And you got to put that back on there. I'm sorry.
Really, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, they're all saying that's what made the difference, and I'm not exactly sure why. Yeah, sorry about that. Well. By the way, you guys, Ryan Ford actually from Grappling Central was watching. He said that fixed the audio issue.
Oh, cool.
Hey,
Ryan.
Went back in the stand. Yeah. What's up,
I think
Ryan?
I finally accepted him. I'm figuring out this Facebook thing.
You're finally getting around to accepting friends on Facebook. Oh, good.
So if anybody's ever sent me a friend request,
now's the time to get in.
Well, but here's the easy part that I'm finding with it.
Yeah.
If I see you request me and we have no friends already together, I just hit the delete request. Because I'm assuming that you have to already kind of be in the circle a little bit, because I'll see names of people that and I'm assuming that, right? I mean, your personal fan page or your personal Facebook page, I'm only going to connect with people that probably have my phone number too, right? Like if you don't know where I live, why would you connect with me on Facebook?
Yeah, I mean,
I have a fan page for that, right?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I didn't realize we were talking about the personal.
The personal one's the one I'm figuring out now.
Yeah, if I could start it over, I would just have the public page, because it's a hassle to have to deal with both. I really didn't understand that when I created Facebook pages. I thought
you got to have a personal one to run a public one.
You do, but you don't have to do anything with it.
Well, and that's where I've been so far up until 2 days ago.
Okay.
I had a personal one, but I've never used it.
Yeah.
I think when I first got it, Jennifer went through there and was accepting people for me that I knew. And then now I've been trying to go through there, and look at the requests, but there's quite a few.
Yeah. It's, why were we just talking about Facebook? What brought it up? Oh, the stream. Ryan Ford said the stream. Okay, so
what were we talking about before that?
He said he fixed the audio.
Bringing old opponents.
We're getting to that. Yeah. I just wanted to say thank you for you folks who were watching the stream and kind of helping us out with letting us know how the audio was sounding. So thank you for that. Good to hear from you, Ryan. Okay, so and Francis also helped us out there. We appreciate it. So we had Tim Sylvia on for the first installment of On the Record with Frank Mir, which is going to be.
Well, that's what it was called.
Yeah. Yeah, it had a name and everything. I was about to compose a theme song. Yeah. So we'll be doing more of it. Like I said, fortunately, we've got a number of opponents to choose from. But one in particular that we thought we were going to have a couple of weeks ago, and we have not told everybody. We kind of alluded a couple of weeks ago, I guess probably the better part of a month now, to the fact that we thought we had something really big planned for the beginning of March. And it was all set. It had been confirmed, and it was canceled at the last minute. And I'll just go ahead and tell you, or would you like to explain who was supposed to be here in the bunker, Frank?
Well, it was going to be Mark Hunt.
Mark Hunt.
We were going to have Mark Hunt sit in here, and I was going to be able to interview him. Also, too, that way we could talk face-to-face about the whole drug testing issue afterwards. I wanted, I feel like anytime you talk to somebody and he was involved in the situation, you should be able to look them eye to eye and have this conversation.
And what happened was this. We were contacted by a film crew that's doing a documentary on him, an Australian film crew. And it went back months. I mean, it was I want to say it was at least 6 months ago, if not longer, probably fall of last year, when they first reached out about trying to get you to participate in the documentary. And so you and I talked about it, and I said, well, what if, if you're willing to do it, what if you do it, but we get him to be a guest on the podcast, we sit down, we do this in person, that gives you a chance to talk to him. We get that content out of it, but then they can also use that for the documentary. And apparently everybody loved the idea. I mean, the person with the documentary company told me that both Mark and Mark's manager had signed off on the idea and that they liked the idea of doing it. And this was back in, I want to say, early February. So at that point, we've had, basically about a month's notice with Mark's confirmation and with his manager's confirmation they wanted to do it. Now, they were going to do it during his fight week when just this the fight here in Vegas that he had with Alistair Overeem. And so, that was I was kind of impressed by that okay, well, if you got time to do this and not just worry about the fights or whatever, then cool. And the whole plan was so that was first, right? Then they contacted us and said, okay, give us the address of like the studio or whatever. And I said, well, we tape our podcast at Frank's house, and we've just built out a bunker, a studio, and how about we do it in here? And they were like, awesome. And it was all set, and it got nixed, I want to say with about 48 hours notice. And I never talked to Mark.
No, it was the Monday.
Yeah.
Monday before the Wednesday.
Because it was going to be a Wednesday, right. And I never talked to Mark, and I never talked to his manager. I heard from the one of the directors of the documentary, and he said, well, they're not going to be able to, they're not going to do that. We still want Frank on. And then at that point, you had declined to do that because why would you just do?
That was my exact words.
No, it wasn't your exact words, but
fuck them.
Yeah, and I said, I told him, I'm like, listen, it's really important to Frank to be able to have this conversation, and we're happy to have it, but that's got to be part of the deal. And I even said, hey, if you want to look at rescheduling it sometime, we could do it. Now we've got a Skype connection. We could get Mark on Skype in here if he'd like to reconsider coming on. But that's where I kind of left it, and that was kind of the last I heard about it. But it was disappointing because, one, I think everybody would have tuned in for that and would have loved to have heard it. But also, how rare is it for something controversial like this to happen? I mean, it's impressive enough that two guys who just were fighting each other a year ago are sitting down and talking, but then also if there's controversy surrounding that fight with the USADA test, that you're going to want to sit down and talk about it. And normally you would think you would be the one who wouldn't want to talk. You were the one who was like, come to my house, sit down, come on the podcast, let's talk about it. I'll tell you, I'll answer any of your questions. It wasn't like we said, okay, we'll have this conversation, but don't ask about this or don't ask about that. There was no stipulation like that. So it was really too bad because I really thought once it was confirmed with him and his manager, I thought, man, this is on, this is happening. And we didn't announce it just because, there's that part of me that's like, well, until we're all sitting here, I'm not going to believe it. And even though I thought it was about 99% for sure, now you're hearing it for the first time, the almost was near miss of having Mark Hunt sitting inside Frank Mir's house here inside our bunker doing the podcast with us. But it's still not too late, Mark. If you'd like to join us via Skype from the land down under, you know what? Not to speak for you, Frank, but how about we'll even accommodate the time differse.
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
we can work that out. So
I'll do the Skype thing, but then that means the documentary I'll only do by Skype.
There you go. Okay. I've always, and I don't know Mark. I mean, I've just interviewed him very briefly, I think once or twice, but I've always, liked him as a guy.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. After reading his book, holy smokes! When you read that, that's like the most honest autobiography I've ever read, and you see like that guy's life story and what he's been through. I would really just for other reasons like a chance to have him on the show and talk about that and everything. So hopefully that'll work out. And now Phone Booth Fighting listeners know the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, about who that big guest was supposed to be, and hopefully we can do it again at some point in the near future. All right. Well, why don't we do this, Frank? We've already told everybody to visit phoneboothfighting.com. Click through that Amazon banner to support the show. It's right there on the front page. Also, official show merchandise is available at phoneboothfighting.com, another great way to reach out and support the show. Also, patronize our sponsors like Real Water, like Earth's Brew, 10% off all orders at checkout if you click on the Earth's Brew link at phoneboothfighting.com. .com, and also a similar offer from Robert Drysdale's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Online Academy. If you click on that link, you'll see all about that. Robert Drysdale, where Frank and myself train Jiu-Jitsu, obviously with varying results, but you know what? Relatively speaking, both success stories, I would say. Yeah. All right. You can follow us on social media. All the social media stuff is right up there at phoneboothfighting.com as well. But specifically, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Richard Hunter. You can find me on Facebook at Official Richard Hunter. Frank and his Facebook awakening is happening over at Official Frank Mir, as well as Twitter and Instagram at The Frank Mir. And this is the part, Frank, for the first time in what feels like a long time, because we haven't been together. This is the part where you tell everybody how to follow the show on social media.
You can follow us on Phone Booth Fighting on Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter. You can find us at Phone Booth Fight.
That's it. And we thank all you guys for hanging with us. We're sorry that just this last week we did have a hard time cranking out new episodes. Normally we're really good about this. I mean, it doesn't matter what country you're in and all that kind of stuff, but we seem to find the point in the world where it's like the furthest difference away in terms of time. A literal 12-hour time difference where day is night and night is day.
Yeah, you know, if
Kinda
I'm there,
hamstrung us.
and I think next time I go out to the Fight Night Global or ACB, either one, I'm going to try to go a day earlier.
Yeah.
Because flying in and going right to the weigh-ins and then having that one night of sleep and then going to the fight, that's where I'm finding the most difficulty. Because I'm telling you that, look, okay, I get back to the hotel, but I've been up now on an airplane for the last 20 hours.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the podcast, and then I'm done.
Yeah.
Then I wake up in the middle of the night for me, and I call you. It's like, hey, or when I finally get up in the morning, but now it's nighttime to you, and so
Yeah.
I feel bad. A couple times I called you, like, hey, man, I'm up, let's go. And I'm like, shit, it's 2 a.m. to him right now.
Well, we appreciate you guys sticking with us, and we're back to full strength here, so we'll keep cranking out new episodes for you guys. For Frank Mir, I'm Richard Hunter. This has been Phone Booth Fighting. We'll see you next time.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening. But they fought with expert timing.